Hi again. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what time of the day it is, wherever you're watching from. It's me again. I'm here for another video. So my name is Dr. Francisca Dr. Amaka. What's my video all about today? To read it. There is this video I watched on YouTube, and it's based on it that I actually want to drop some comments or react to that. So I watched a video of a woman that lives in the UK with her family, obviously, with her husband and her 5 children. And she has actually raised her children, according to her. The eldest is about 21 years. So just to tell you, and she raised all, practically all, according to her story. Her first child was about 9 months when she relocated to the UK, and all other four were given birth to in the UK, and she has raised all. Her eldest now is 21 years. The reason I'm giving this her background is so you know she's actually a mom that has raised adults. She raised them at the childhood, teenage age, and now they're adults. Why am I just so? Why am I talking about this? It's about social services. She talked about her son, one of her sons, she smacked on the shoulders, reporting in school that he was abused by his mom. And then the school took it up. Social services were called on. The child is about 15 years, so a teenager. Social services were called on, and then that the social services made her leave the house. As she was given conditions, she either leaves the house or her younger child, who is about 13 years, will be taken out from her and fostered. So she took the option of leaving the house. Now, this woman is a nurse, so a working class nurse. Why did I bring up this video? One, if you're actually a foreigner, a Westerner, I mean, originally Westerner. So if you're in the UK, you're a member of the social services and all that. I'm commenting on this based on number one, the professional impact of fostering kids. I have been opportuned to work in psychiatry, and I know the impact these things have on children. You understand? There are things called obvious abuse. If you see that this is not an abuse and this is a form of discipline on the child, please, fostering kids. If you are actually for the protection of children, fostering kids is actually worse than leaving them with their biological parents. So this video is practically trying to emphasize again on this social services in the Western nation, the way they take kids away from their parents, especially of course the Africans. One thing you should understand is that we all have different cultures. So those raised in Africa have their culture, and those raised in the United Kingdom have their culture. You understand? You agree with me? It's just like telling me to come and always dress like a Westerner. Sometimes I dress in my culture. You know, what I'm saying is that if there are things in the African culture that is obviously harmful to children, I will also support if those things are withdrawn from parents, but not a smack on the shoulder that way. And she made me understand that there's actually a law in Scotland now, those that live in Scotland, there's actually a law in Scotland now that any form of physical contact with a child is going to be deemed an abuse and assault. So any form of contact is not allowed. That you are allowed to discipline your child in other measures, but no physical contact. I am not a hitting parent. I've made a video, comprehensive video on this. I'm not a parent. I was raised in the African culture, but I'm not a parent. I'm not a mom that believes in always hitting children. Like I've made a video on this and talked about the negative impact of that as well. But we were raised in a culture where you are beaten to correct. You understand? And honestly, some kids actually that was actually their scare, because daddy will beat me if I get home. Because mommy will beat me if she gets to know this if I get home. They avoid doing that. I'm not saying it's neither here nor there. I for one, when I was growing, when I was a child, I abhor my dad using the cane on me or my mom hitting me in any form. So because of that, I'm always very careful on their rules or what I know they want me to do or what they don't want me to do. But then, that that doesn't go for every child. You understand? But I know for me, the cane scares me. But I know that also some kids have gotten so used to their parents spanking, their parents flogging, spanking them, that they become very used to it. And your aim trying to correct their vices is not going to work. But that in Scotland, according to her, that in Scotland there is a strict rule on physical contact with your child. So why I'm bringing up this video is that the social services were called on from school, and when she said yes, she smacked him on his shoulders. The social services said that that is actually not acceptable, and the disciplinary actions were taken on her. Actually, she was actually made to leave her house. She was given condition either leaving her house or her 13-year-old will be taken out of the house. So she preferred, which was actually a better option, to leave the house than her 13-year-old taken away from her from the house and fostered. But there is this thing I'm speaking as well from my professional point of view. I think the whites as well. One of the reasons why we coexist, why we co-inhabit. You understand? I mean, if you go to this in Nigeria, in Africa as well, we have a lot of foreigners there. So many British are in Africa. For crying out loud, in British embassies in Nigeria, for example, the British, most of them work there. So I have this to say. I think culture should be respected. Once it is not one that is absolutely harmful to the child, cultures should be respected. It's like coming to tell me that palm oil has a lot of cholesterol in it, therefore I should stop using it to cook for my children. You understand? You have your culture, I have my culture. Or coming to tell a British race, a white, oh, that you should never eat cheese because that these things are very high fat and it is not the acceptable fat, so that you shouldn't use it at all, you should never eat it. I'm sure those that grew eating cheese all the time, we see this as absurd. My way of saying cultures are different, and I think culture should be respected. I am not a hitting parent. I've made a comprehensive video on that. I do not support hitting kids all the time because I also believe it could have negative impact on the children. But for crying out loud, if I spank a child that way, and like number one, it does not leave permanent mark on the child, and it's not, but it's a way of like trying to correct the child. That's not an abuse. So we should label what abuses are as abuse. I'm not saying hit all the time. Like I said, I've made it categorically clear that I am not a parent that hates. But because I grew in this culture, you understand? I am not in support. I'm not in absolute support of the way some of our parents actually hit us. Those ones, some spanking are actually abuse. That's the truth. I like being very honest when I say so. Some form of spanking are actually abuse. Some parents hit their kids up to the extent that they are hospitalized. I do not support those things. But then there is what we call minimal, I don't know, minimal spanking or something like that. If that works for the parents on trying to correct the child, please, this trying to tense parents up, especially the black parents, they tense them up that they become very careful and their kids become indisciplined. I don't think it's the correct pathway. You understand? Some of the Africans have resorted to taking their children back to Africa, and this is actually also affecting because actually a child should have that bond and relationship with the parents. So a child you are raising elsewhere will likely have a good relationship with the parents. So this idea of any little thing you threaten the parents with fostering their children is a threat if you don't understand what it is. There is no mom or dad that wants to, any responsible one, I mean, that wants you to take his child or her child away from her, and then taking them to fostering home. So also consider, the social services should also consider the psychological impact of this, their so-called fostering. These kids are raised under foster care and they come up later in life with psychiatric illnesses, with withdrawal, with depression, if I mean a very significant one that could be termed pathology. I don't see the benefit of that kind of fostering. So I think this thing should come. I've been in panels as well where decisions are made to either take a child off the parents based on mental health anyway or not. So in such panels you even see that even parents with mental illness, once they are not aggressive, even if they are aggressive and their medication is able to control to some extent their psychotic symptoms, inclusive of aggression, the kids will not be taken off the parents. This is because, from the medical point of view, we understand that bonding, the impact of that bonding on the child. I really think that this issue needs to be really addressed, this thing readdressed. Because if actually it was just a spank, like she gave her account, that it was just a spank, but because her son went, remember that kids, especially at teenage age, if you understand what raising kids are, any parent that has raised kids to teenage age understands that teenagers, that's the period of juvenile delinquency, that's the period of peer pressure, that's the period of peer influence. You understand? So your child could actually be raised appropriately from home and then goes to school. There is this kind of peer pressure and all that. There's this kind of peer pressure, and the child takes into truancy, takes into different juvenile delinquency. So a child of 15 years coming to school because he knows he has that arm over his parents, coming to school and then reporting that I was abused by my mom. My mom assaulted me. And then you came and made the mom leave the house. I mean, there is nothing wrong in trying to investigate what he said. It is not also good to ignore, because actually some parents are actually extreme. That's the truth. No, so there is nothing wrong in actually investigating. But if this account she's given, this account she gave of just spanking by the shoulder is authentic, please, social services, whatever rule in Scotland, whatever rule it is in Scotland, you need to look into this. Because in the long run, if these kids become irresponsible later in life, it is not just going to be on the parents, it is also going to affect the environment that those kids are. You know, According to her, she said that there's a rule in Scotland now. It's specific to Scotland. I don't. She said in England, Northern Ireland, and other parts of the United Kingdom, you can actually hit a child, but you need to be careful because it's minimal hit. You have to be careful. But that in Scotland specifically, any form of physical contact with a child. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. From both practical experience, I have kids. I've also been raising kids. You know, I have the from practical experience with children, and then from a professional point of view as well. Children needs disciplinary measures. Now, for some kids, those discipline like timing them out, taking away their valuables, like you take away their phones, you take away their iPads, you take away, valuables, depriving them of things they like, just so they understand this thing you did is a no go area for me. I do not tolerate it. But honestly, some kids are very more difficult to train than others. You understand? For me, once it is not an abnormal, there are some that are actually out of place. I agree. There are some that are actually out of place. But once it is not actually an abuse, if as social services you are called on, you investigate, you came and got the details of the story and all that, and you saw after your investigation, I know some mothers lie. Some mothers will tell lies, yes. But like after you have thoroughly investigated, please, that aspect of telling her to leave her house and her son knowing about it, holding her son, it's like supporting him for tomorrow. And there was a comment she made. She said, when they misbehave in school, the school calls the parents, we are sending him back because he misbehaved. Then let us discipline our child. And that issue of what are my parental rights came up. You understand? You cannot discipline the child in school. You're telling me to take that child, but I'm trying to discipline the child in such a way that it gets into his call. This behavior is not tolerable. And then you are telling me to leave the house, leave my house. What do you think you actually taught the child? I think it's an issue of serious concern. Very, very serious concern. Because so many African parents are becoming very threatened, very scared to raise their kids. If you go home, I know there is this is the man of God that always emphasizes on it. Don't train your children abroad. They will teach them how to report to police, report to this, report to that. But I think culture should be respected. You understand? As blacks, a lot of Africans are in the United Kingdom. So many British are also living in Nigeria. I don't think anyone has gone to prevent like tell them you can't practice this or do that. And I'm not saying I should bring in all my cultures here, whether those that are, but there are some that you look at and you know that this is not actually out of place. So this is actually the video, the this thing I came to make. This aspect of threatening with social services. Social services should be called on. When my second daughter fell from a story building to the ground floor, I was the social services this thing were involved, but that thing did not even cross anywhere because some things are glaring. A caring parent is a caring parent. You should know that. You understand? So all those things you're trying to do, you're kind of encouraging the boy tomorrow, encouraging that child tomorrow to do the same thing, to disrespect the parents. You're kind of encouraging the child not to tolerate the discipline the parent is giving him or her. And then what kind of kids are we going to raise? What kind of citizens are you going to raise? So I think it's a thing of very serious concern, very, very extreme concern that this should be looked at strictly. I'm not saying social services should not be involved. Social services should be involved. But please, if you do your investigation and you see this is not an assault, please let that be respected. So that kids will be raised responsibly. No parent want to have an irresponsible child later on in life. Neither does the government want to have irresponsible citizens. So this is my bit of this. If you're coming across my channel for the first time, please do well to subscribe, like, and share. If you're a returning subscriber, I really appreciate. Don't forget also to share this video. Thank you so much. Until my next video, it's still me, Francisca. Please don't forget, please, like, share, subscribe, please, for more. Thank you.